Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the Identity Project. Today, I have a special guest. His name is Griffin Elbert. He is 2 months away from being done with med school. What is going on, my man? How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Dude, so I'm excited that we got connected. I think it was originally through like the Precision Nutrition little Facebook group there, but obviously Tony, Jason, so kind of in this little inner circle. But dude, I'm excited to kind of learn more about your story today and just be able to kind of get a little bit more insight into the medical community and really just your emphasis and wanting to learn more about nutrition and your journey. So, dude, let's start with the very beginning. How did this all happen? Like, how did you get to where you are today?
Well, basically to start out with, I was a college athlete. I played football in college and ran track, and my nutrition was horrible at that time. We weren't taught anything from our coaches, from our athletic trainers, anybody about like what we should be eating. Basically, they just told us to make sure that we were drinking enough water so we didn't pass out on the field. And then I kind of, right after I got done with football, I got into the whole CrossFit world, became a CrossFit trainer, started to get kind of competitive with that. And I was looking for ways to enhance my own performance, see how I could, get 1% better, just try and, get my times better, my lifts better, everything like that. And I stumbled across a guy named Jason Phillips, who we both know. I started listening to a bunch of his podcasts and talks that he was given. And it really amazed me just how deep you can get into the whole nutrition aspect to just enhance your performance, enhance your overall lifestyle. So I kind of just ate up all the information that he was putting out, and I really just fell in love with it all. And being a CrossFit trainer at the time, I was able to kind of spread that information into the clients that we had in the gym that were, trying to get themselves better and get their nutrition under control. And just seeing the impact that it had not only on my life, but on, the members in the gym, I got fascinated with it. And at the same time, I got into med school. So I was a CrossFit trainer while I was in med school. And it kind of amazed me how little they actually taught us about nutrition in med school. I know we were kind of chatting about it earlier. They taught us some of the biochemistry aspects of it, just, how protein gets broken down, stuff like that. But they never actually told us, how much protein do you need? Like, how many carbs should you be getting in? Not focusing on quality of food or anything like that. We were never taught any of that. I even took a specific elective that was supposed to teach us the whole nutrition side of it. And really, they just spent one class each week just diving into different diets that are out there. They would go into the Mediterranean diet and different recipes for that. And they would go into more of a Middle Eastern diet and the recipes that are involved with that. But they never really broke it down into how can you apply this to specific patients and things like that. And it kind of frustrated me that I wasn't getting that information. I was basically limited to whatever Jason was putting out at the time and whatever other information I could find. And that's kind of how I got involved with Precision Nutrition. And once Jason released his certification, going through that, just trying to immerse myself in as much information as I could. And once I felt like I had enough information, once I felt comfortable with it, I actually started my own nutrition coaching business. That way I could try to help spread that information even more and impact as many people as I could with that information.
Wow. That's awesome, man. I remember, I went through and got my nutrition degree, and it's crazy to me. Even going through that, like, I really struggled with it a lot because I started working as a personal trainer at 18 years old, and like I started diving into, all these different certifications, precision nutrition being one of them, and really just kind of like doing my own learning and research outside of school, but then also being in school and like taking those classes. And I just always struggled. I always ask people, I'm like for me, like I actually got into like arguments like with teachers and like other students, like about various topics. And it's just so interesting to me, it's like that was something I really struggled with because I felt like my university was essentially like I don't know, 10 years behind where current like nutrition education was at. So was that the same for you at all, or?
It definitely was. I mean, there were other students in my class that were kind of on the same route as I was. They wanted to learn more about nutrition. They weren't happy with the education that they were getting. But during my clinical rotations, just working with different physicians, it was quite obvious that there was a lot of education lacking when it came to nutrition. I could definitely tell some of the physicians actually like yielded to me when we were talking with patients because I had told them that I did nutrition coaching on the side. And they would actually just refer to me and say, oh, you can talk to him about, whatever you need to for your nutrition. And they would just let me deal with it. But then other physicians, it's almost like they were indoctrinated in certain beliefs that I don't really feel were applicable or wasn't the best advice. So in that situation, it was so hard because obviously, we're sitting there in front of the patient and the physician is giving them this advice that I don't necessarily think was appropriate. And in that situation, I just kind of have to bite my tongue and, just let them go through it because, I can't just step over the physician in this circumstance. So definitely a lot of tough circumstances like that.
Yeah. Wow. I can only imagine. I mean, me being in school, like I just look like a jerk in front of my classmates. They're like, who is this kid? Who does he think he is? And in that setting, like obviously, yeah, there's nothing you could really do. But dude, I'm so interested. So like, I mean, take me back a little bit further. Like, did you always know that you wanted to become a doctor? Like where, I mean, how did like medical school, I mean, that's a huge accomplishment. So like, was this something you always wanted to do? Like, take me back a little bit more, like back to like childhood. How did this
Yeah.
how did this all happen?
So growing up, I had an older brother that was 2 years older than I was. And he was, of course, started Little League before me. And I got to see, he was this big guy. He was pretty athletic, pretty strong, played, lineman football. And he was just a stud out there. So I got to see him competing out there with his friends and everything. And he made a name for himself. So obviously looking up to him, I was like, I want to do that. I want to be that person. And kind of growing up under him, people would always be like, oh, his name was Jake. So they'd be like, oh, you're Jake's little brother. I never kind of had my own identity, my own sense of self there.
Mm.
So I was always struggling, trying to find my own name and make a name for myself that way. So I definitely just fought and trained and did as much as I could to be as good of an athlete as I could be. So I, was basically a 3-sport athlete growing up, played football, basketball, track, and just immersed myself in athletics, weightlifting, everything that I could. And in doing so, I just kind of fell in love with anatomy and physiology of the human body because everything that I just wanted to dive deep into anything that would help my performance get better and anything that could help me develop into as good of an athlete as possible. So in doing so, that got me studying kind of physics and biology and chemistry, things like that. And it just made sense that since I was immersing myself in all this information, I decided I kind of wanted to go into sports medicine and just be like a sports doc for, a professional team, something like that. It just seemed to fit that way. Obviously I had aspirations of like going to the NFL or something like that, like all kids do, but I realized pretty quickly that probably wasn't going to happen, just with my size and everything. So getting into high school, I'd pretty much planned ahead that, I would take all these advanced classes into science and try to apply that towards like a pre-med degree in college and then work my way into med school. And it just so happened that since I was so interested in these things from my athletic background, my interest in it helped me excel like to a much greater degree that I was taking multiple advanced science classes at the same time. And I love just all the ways that all of them integrated together and just helped me get way ahead. I was actually able to graduate undergrad in 3 years. So it's a little interesting story. I went to kind of a smaller, it's an NAIA school. So it's kind of like a NCAA Division II, kind of equals that, I guess you would say.
Yeah, I went
Um,
to an AI school in Kansas to play football my first year. So
oh, nice, nice.
yeah.
Yeah, so you know all about it. Um, but yeah, I played. I didn't start my freshman year, but I played my freshman year, so I didn't get redshirted. And since I graduated my third year of undergrad, I still had 1 year of eligibility left. And I ended up going to med school at the same undergrad school that I went to. So they were able to let me play my first year of med school as well. So
Wow.
yeah, that was a really fun experience. So,
I
but
bet
yeah,
I bet you didn't have much social time then, did you?
no, but I mean, I always seem to keep myself busy somehow. I was doing football in med school at the same time. Once I got done with that, I became a CrossFit trainer. So I had a job on the side, and then I started the nutrition business as well. So, you know, I can't just sit around and do nothing all day. I have to keep myself busy.
Yeah, no, that's cool. There's definitely those types of, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, I mean, I get it. Um, so I'm curious, what were some of your like favorite athletes for you, like growing up? Like, I mean, obviously you said football, track, and basketball. Is that right?
Yep, yep. And it was interesting because football was that was my special interest. I love football. Um, I kind of played every position that there was. You know, I've played lineman, tight end, D line, anything, quarterback, running back, pretty much any position. I was a punter even though I couldn't kick. So that was interesting. Um, but just growing up, you know, playing basketball and running track was always a way for me to stay in shape or get better for football. So I didn't really feel any special interest in either of those two. So I never really, you know, watched basketball or watched track meets growing up or anything like that. But I'd say my favorite NFL player growing up was Jerry Rice. Just an incredible wide receiver, and just his catching ability, athletic ability. It was amazing to watch him play. So I'd say he was my favorite player, but it was interesting because I grew up in Indianapolis, but I was an Oakland Raiders fan. So that never made any sense.
Why
But,
was that?
you know, I really don't know. I think my favorite, it's weird to say my favorite color was black growing up because I'm not sure if black really even counts as as a color. It's the absence of color, but they just had their all black jerseys and their crazy fans all dressed up and everything. So I think that's what I just liked about it.
Well, I was gonna say, was it during the era when they were just like bad to the bone? Like I forgot what those years were, but I watched a documentary like on like 30 for 30 about like that time. Was
Yeah,
that the
yeah.
time?
I think it was like right after that time period. So I probably got sucked into, you know, everybody thought that they were so great, but then they're kind of on the downhill run then.
Yeah. Oh, that's what it was. It was like with the rappers. Like it was with,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, okay. Yeah. I was like thinking back, I was like, what was I thinking of with that? Um, that's interesting. So through this, I mean, like as we kind of like transition here a little bit, like what do you think, or why do you think it is that there's such like a lack of emphasis on nutrition, like going through med school? Like, I mean, do you think at any point they're gonna put more emphasis on it, or?
I definitely think that they need to, but one of the reasons why they don't is because physicians are taught ways to deal with disease and to deal with sickness. And in a way, they're taught when someone comes to you, they're already sick or they're already diseased, and you just need to figure out how you can get them right. So the main thing that you can think about is like when people come to you with diabetes, you have to obviously get their blood sugar corrected, and there's a lot of different medications out there that can help you do that. And then they kind of add in there, oh, but you should first kind of work on their diet. And they don't really tell you much because a lot of times when people come to you, they're so far down into the hole of diabetes that just changing their diet isn't going to have that big of an effect. So the main focus is on there's all these different medications. You need to know what each medication does, which one you should use in what order, what combinations, and things like that. So they're more focused on kind of like the pharmaceutical route rather than what can you do with lifestyle and diet and exercise and things like that, because they're thinking about the sickest of the sick and how can you help those. But I think there needs to be a different view on that. I think we need to go to more of a preventative health model. If you can get to that person before they've even got diabetes, and you can make sure that you've changed their diet around and get them exercising, doing things like that before they contract diabetes, then you're preventing having to use any of that medication to begin with. But
Right.
at the same time, we're stuck in this dilemma where insurance is paying for all of medical care for the most part. So then in order to make a profit from your practice or get paid what you believe that you're worth, you have to bill for certain things, or you have to see a certain degree of patient sort of a certain level of decision making is what they call it. So the tougher the patient or the more medical problems that they have, the more that you will get paid. And then obviously you're trying to run patients through as quick as possible so you can bill for as much as possible and get paid as much as possible. So in the end, it kind of all comes down to money for the most part, and that you obviously want to get paid what you're worth. So you're still thinking about the patient and their health, but how can you get the most value out of your practice? But I don't necessarily think in the long run that's best for the population's health as a whole.
Right. Well, I mean, I think everybody understands that. I mean, it is a business, right? And everybody's got to make money. There's just a way of going about it, a right way and a wrong way, I guess. But let me ask the question this, like, insurance aside, if you were able to bill out like your, I don't know, your facility, your office, whatever you wanted to call it, like, what would it look like in a perfect world for you? Like what would that process look like?
So this is actually my true long-term goal. So I'm glad that you brought this up. And I just got off of a med school rotation that they called lifestyle medicine, and that I got to rotate with a bunch of different providers and like counselors and dietitians, things like that. So I got to see multiple different perspectives within a healthcare team, and it vibes directly with what I want to do later on in life, which is have kind of a facility, like you said, that incorporates all aspects of wellness in it. So I could be a physician there myself, maybe with a couple partners, whatever it may be, but have a team behind me of dietitians or nutritionists or educators, behavior counselors, physical therapists, sports med people, maybe even a gym connected to it. That way people would have, a direct reference for exercise, things like that. But a whole team, that way the patient can feel comfortable going to anybody in this team for any of their needs that they have. If they're coming down with a sickness or, something's not right with their health, they can see me as a physician. If they need help getting their diet right, or they decide they want to lose weight or have some other goal like that, they can see the dietitian or a nutritionist. If they're having, just mental health problems, they can see a psychologist or a behavior counselor, whatever it may be. All of these aspects could be housed in one facility. So it's kind of this whole integrative health facility that I want to have later on down the road in my career when that's possible.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I've had very, very similar dreams of doing something like that. I actually, my like ultimate dream is like, I would love to have something similar like that, but like as an online platform, kind of, like the, who's Julie and her husband, what's the program they have? Do you remember? Foucher.
There's a couple different programs out there. I know is it Steady MD? Is that what they do? Or
Yeah,
Wise MD, something like that?
Yeah, I think it's Steady MD is what it was. But yeah, I just, that'd be so cool, because I think the biggest missing link is like, one, like it is so annoying for clients to just be put through the ringer in terms of like going to all of these different people, and having not a team that's in-house, right? Like they're getting referred to all these different people all over the place. And then also like not having that community aspect that like, like CrossFit has kind of brought to attention. So that's awesome, man. I think that would be a really, really cool thing. I actually heard about, I don't know if you saw this, but there's a hospital, and I forget where it's at, but they have a CrossFit gym that's kind of like, they've created some type of partnership, and they're creating like something similar to that.
Yeah, it's part of the movement that CrossFit has with they're calling it CrossFit Health, I believe. They're really reaching out to a lot of physicians and healthcare providers, trying to get them indoctrinated into CrossFit's vision of kind of defeating chronic disease and switching more towards that preventative health viewpoint. And I think there's actually a couple, maybe 2 or 3 different hospitals now that have partnered with CrossFit gyms that after patients are seen in the hospital, or they have physicians that are affiliated with the hospital, the physicians can actually refer them to the CrossFit gym to, go X number of times a week or see the specific trainer, things like that. So
Wow.
I definitely think that's where things are headed.
That's really cool. That's interesting. So as you mentioned, you have 2 months left, right? And then, so what does the process look like for you going forward? I mean, you have your own business now. What is that called?
Zeus Nutrition.
Zeus Nutrition. Okay. So 2 months left with school, Zeus Nutrition, you've started that. How long has that kind of been in the works for?
A little over a year. So my wife and I started it together. We both went through the NCI process with Jason Phillips, and I went through Precision Nutrition, and she studied up on that information as well. So we're both doing nutrition coaching through our business, Zeus Nutrition. We've been doing that for a little over a year, and we're going to keep that going as much as we can. For me, it's going to be a little bit hard because after I graduate in May and I become a physician, I start my residency training. And that's a 3-year process. I'm going to be going through family medicine, and we're actually moving out to California, which I'm very excited about. But I'll be spending 3 years out there working in a hospital, whole system and everything out there. And it's pretty time intensive. It's pretty much 60 to 80 hours a week. So I'm going to do as much nutrition coaching as I can on top of that. But obviously, I've got to think about my own health in that stance. But I think my wife is kind of taking the reins on the business as we start that, but definitely going to try to keep it going. That way, once I finish the 3-year residency program, if I'm looking towards, opening my own practice, then we can kind of merge my practice with Zeus Nutrition to have this more well-rounded service that we can provide people.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I actually, I worked with a client through her residency, and it was at like the very end of it. So I'm sure it was, I don't want to say I went through it, but I definitely through coaching her through it, like it was a lot. It was something that, it definitely was very time demanding, but we had a lot of success working together. I think we worked together like the last 8 months or so of it. And I think for her, just having that peace of mind, because she just had a million other things going on, and it's like, we just needed to simplify the process for her. So,
oh yeah, definitely.
That's awesome, man. Well, dude, so in terms of like nutrition and the business now and the clients that you're working with, I mean, what are some of the common issues that you're seeing, working one-on-one and kind of doing this online coaching with people?
So coming from an athletic background and originally starting our coaching while we were at a CrossFit gym, we originally attracted a lot of athletes, I would say, whether it be people just in a CrossFit gym, whether they're, truly competitive or not, or old collegiate athletes, whatever it may be. And they're just severely underfueling themselves. And I would even go to the point to say that, the people that you wouldn't necessarily say that they're athletes, but they just go into the gym, a few times a week, they are severely limiting the amount that they eat, and their body is just adapted to that amount. People coming in eating 1,200, 1,500 calories when, they should be at least in the 2,000s, something like that. And, just the fear that they have of adding food back in. And part of the process for us is explaining to them, how many calories their body actually should be burning based, off these equations that are kind of an average normal, you could say. And showing them the amount that they're actually taking in, and showing that the difference between the two, and saying, you know, you're not sleeping well, you don't have a lot of energy, you can't focus on anything, your performance in the gym hasn't been going up at all, you're actually getting injured, and this is probably why. So we've got to add some of these foods back in. You know, we've got to get you some more carbohydrates and fuel your body. We've got to increase your protein intake. That way you can recover properly from these workouts. And once we get them to believe that, and once we get them to actually do our program, and they feel the results, not just seeing the results, they feel it personally every single day, waking up feeling better, going, like, having energy to go to the gym, motivation to finish their workout, and they see these results, they just start to love it. And then once we get their body healthy, then we can start to work on the original goals that they had came to us with.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree. I mean, there's definitely a lot of people under eating out there, whether it's athletes or just gym pop. Do you think, I mean, I'm always curious, do you think it's that they just like that they're actually trying to undereat, or do you think it's just kind of like out of sight, out of mind? Like they're just so busy throughout their day and they're like, skipping breakfast, lunch, and it's like 3 p.m. They're like, oh shit, I haven't ate. Or like, what do you feel is like the issue with that?
I actually think it's a combination of both. Some people are trying to eat less because I feel like the majority of people that come to us are always saying that they need to lose weight or they want to lose weight. And they say, well, I've like decreased the amount that I've ate. And most of them just think about either eating fewer times throughout the day or just eating fewer portion sizes. But, in today's world, like you said, everybody gets so busy that they just forget things. So either they're skipping breakfast or they work through lunch, something like that. So on top of them trying to decrease portion sizes or decrease the amount that they're eating, they also end up skipping meals and forgetting that they're skipping meals. So then, the amount that they just take in is so much smaller than they actually think it is.
Yeah. How much of it do you like when you're first doing like an initial assessment with clients and kind of like looking at their intake, like how, like maybe you could like throw out a percentage, like how much of the time do you feel like these people are not actually like logging their food correctly or like weighing their food or like accurately, like, representing what they've actually been doing for the past few months?
A direct percentage I couldn't say, but I would actually say, well, it depends, because when we do our intake, we try to educate them as much as we can about, everything that you eat, you need to track. And if you have a weight scale or a digital scale, weigh everything before you log it and you eat it and everything like that. So I feel like for us, they're pretty accurate. But at the same time, I'm not sure how much it actually reflects what they've been doing the few weeks or the few months prior, just because anytime that you start to become aware of what you're eating, it's going to change. Even though we tell them, don't change anything, just eat how you normally would. We're not judging you at all. We just need to know like how things have been going for you. Just the basic of awareness is just going to change it no matter what. So almost everybody, it's going to be different.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's always so interesting. We'll actually have clients do like a food picture log to go along with like the MyFitnessPal, just so we can like see it and make sure they logged it correctly, or at least to the best of our ability. But yeah, I mean, it's just little things. Like it'll be just grabbing things here or there that they didn't record, in the office, or it'll be like not logging their like olive oil or whatever,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think obviously the key is creating as much awareness as possible as like, look, you don't have to be like freaking, crazy about this for the rest of your life. But like during this assessment period, like we need to get as honest of an assessment as possible. So like try to make sure you actually, log everything in correctly and give us, an accurate assessment here.
Exactly. And that's saying exactly what you said with, you don't have to do this for the rest of your life. That's something that we have to get across to, the clients that come to us, is we don't expect you to constantly be weighing and measuring every single thing that you eat until, you're 90 years old. We need to get this down initially to figure out exactly what you are eating and how we can fix this so that you can reach your goals right now. And then through that process, we're going to learn a lot about food and a lot about how you're eating and, how you can pay attention to your own body and the food that you're eating. That way you don't have to measure and track everything later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, any coach, I'm like, ask your coach if they would sit here and do this for the rest of your life. Like, I promise you, I'm not going to log my food for the rest of my life. Like, it's a tool, right? Like, let me use that tool when I need it. If I'm going to go prep for a show, like, yeah, you bet your ass I'm going to be logging my food. But, if I'm just enjoying life, like, no, I'm not logging my food.
Exactly. So true.
That's awesome, man. So what do you feel like are some of like the biggest like misconceptions around, just like this whole process, like whether you're trying to, like whether it's an aesthetic goal or whether it's a performance goal or whether it's just a health goal, like what do you feel like are some of just like the biggest misconceptions? Because everybody's pointing fingers, right? They're like, this diet's good, this diet's bad, these foods are good, these foods are bad. And I think ultimately like any diet works. It's just, most people are trying to put themselves in this little like cookie cutter box rather than trying to build the diet that actually works for them.
Right. And I wouldn't say that there's one single misconception or one single belief that people have that is causing this. I would say it's the fact that people are trying to specify one, whether it be one specific diet or one specific nutrient that is the solution for them or the cause for whatever is going wrong. We went through the phase of people demonizing fat and saying that fat was making everybody fat and causing all of these heart attacks and things like that. But then they started to realize that that wasn't true. So now the tide has shifted over to, carbs are bad and carbs are making people fat and causing diabetes and everything like that. But now it's almost like we're starting to see that shift back too. So everybody's trying to figure out, what's this one thing that's making us fat or that's stopping us from reaching our goals, or what is, this one diet, say the keto diet or going paleo, or this one belief that's going to fix everything. And like you said, I don't think there is one fix or there's one thing that's causing everything to go wrong. It's all of these different diets, all of the nutrients are tools for your body that you can use. And you just have to figure out what tool is right for your body and for your goals, your situations. So it's just understanding your own body, your lifestyle, and understanding, the science behind the nutrition so that you can use it to your benefit.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I always tell people it's like we're our own, science experiment, right? Like
exactly.
We have to, all of us that like do this and are paying it forward and helping others, it's because we figured it out for ourselves in a sense. It's like we never actually completely figured it out. Like it's a lifelong journey, but I just think that a lot of people, it's information overload first off, and they're hopping around trying all these different things, but it's like they try it for a week and like nothing happens and they're like, oh, this doesn't work for me. I'm like, come on, like this, like nothing takes 1 week, like it's going to be a longer process than that.
Exactly.
So what are some other things that you talk about your clients with? Like, I mean, obviously like we know that coaching goes a lot deeper than like just nutrition. Like, mindset's a big sexy word that you hear all the time, but what going into maybe more of the lifestyle side of things, like what are some things that you talk about with your clients with that?
I'd say one of the biggest things that almost all of the clients we deal with is sleep. Just making sure everybody's trying to just cut their sleep wherever that they can. They're trying to get ahead on whether it be school or work or whatever they can do there, or they're getting up at 4 a.m. just to make sure that they get their workout in, but they're only sleeping 6 hours a night, and that they're just shooting themselves in the foot. One of the sayings I've heard is it's like trying to shoot a cannon out of a canoe, and they're doing one thing to get ahead, but then they're just pulling themselves back by not getting enough sleep and not recovering properly. So that's probably the biggest lifestyle factor that we've had to deal with our clients. Just focusing not only on the quantity of their sleep, but the quality of it as well, and making sure that they're not sleeping with the television on in the bedroom, or if they can, get the TV out of the bedroom and get off screens before you go to bed, keep it as dark as you can, all these different things that are going to impact their sleep. And then, like I said, these clients, they make these changes and they see the results that come out of them and they feel so much better, and they can't believe how they were living the way that they were. And that's the part that's just so impactful for us, is the things that we can change without changing the nutrition at all, just changing their lifestyle, or like you said, changing their mindset. And that makes the biggest difference. That's what I really love to see.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the thing I always laugh about is it's just like, you think about the questions that we get, right? And everyone's like, you know, what supplement should I take? What diet should I do? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like sleep and water, like hydration, staying hydrated, like those two things are actually free. Like they don't cost any money. Like it's free. But yet they're two of like the most neglected things out there. You know, it's like, I want to do this. I want to achieve this. What supplement should I take? What program should I do? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, how much are you sleeping on average per night? Like, oh, I get 5 hours. I'm like maybe we should start there, you know?
Exactly. Everybody wants the super specific, sexy little, like these secrets that nobody really knows about to help them get to the next level, but they go past the basics first, and the basics are what's going to get the most results.
Yeah, absolutely. I always reference, like, you know, in terms of like building the foundation, or like the big rocks, if you will. And I'm like, the big rocks are the things like that matter. You know, it's like a jar and there's like 5 big rocks in there. And then there's all these little like pebbles and sand. Right. And like the 5 big rocks are like sleep and nutrition and like exercise and hydration. And, you know, I'm sure you could like put out there whatever you want in terms of those 5, but then there's the keto and all these different, like, you know, small little details that are the rocks, the pebbles or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's so easy to get overwhelmed. I mean, even us that are like in the nutrition field and like working with clients, and I mean, nutrition can be as easy or as complicated as we make it. Right.
Yeah. And it's bringing it back towards the medical side too. A lot of these chronic diseases that people come in with, if the physician actually took a step back and started with those basic, simple processes of, are you sleeping enough? Are you getting enough water? Are you eating correctly? Are you exercising? If they got all of those in a line, a lot of the chronic things that you're seeing would start to resolve themselves. And you wouldn't have to go towards all the different medications and the routes that you have to go to and stuff like that. If you just started simple, a lot of the things would fix it.
I feel like there should be like a specific like course or like certification like created like by a doctor, like for doctors specifically, like addressing that, like just that one problem there.
It's funny because as I've gone through this process, I've actually considered, you know, once I become a physician and I kind of have my own practice and have put this into play, once I see a lot of success with it, which I'm anticipating, I've thought about creating like a specific course just like that for physicians that are in practice, or medical students that are about to be in practice for that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. I think back, like I started doing personal training at like 18 years old, and we had, you know, this little like assessment that they told everybody to do, where you had to like stand with your feet straight and do this like overhead squat with your hands over your head. Right.
Yeah.
And then that assessment process for me evolved into doing like FMS. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
Great Cook. And so, you know, a little more in depth, but I don't know. I would think about it in that way. It's like, hey, you know, when a client comes to you, you know, here's just kind of the assessment process from a nutrition and lifestyle standpoint that could help you, I guess, just with your overall assessment of that patient.
Yeah, exactly. It's to have an initial screening tool like that would be a great thing to have, actually.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So how inspired are you by like Julie Foucher and like what she's doing? I mean, obviously she competed in CrossFit, and like, you know, I don't know exactly where she's at in her career now, but I know she's, you know, she's just somebody that's like really doing a lot of cool things and is really inspiring from afar.
Yeah, I've definitely been a fan of hers since she was doing so great at the CrossFit Games and everything, and that she was in med school. And she really falls in line with exactly what I want to do too, just because she has this focus on overall wellness and nutrition and preventative health. Right now, I believe she's in her residency at the Cleveland Clinic, and she's started going through the process of getting certified as like a functional medicine doctor, which just takes on kind of the viewpoint that we're talking about, is getting back to a lot of the basic things, but getting down to the root cause of the disease and trying to fix that first, rather than just throwing all these prescriptions out there to kind of alleviate symptoms and things like that. So we definitely have the same viewpoints on a lot of treating the diseases and illnesses out there. So I really love the work that she's doing.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I don't know if you've ran into this at all, but like with functional medicine doctors out there, I feel like there's some that like, for whatever reason, maybe like get a bad rap. And I think it's like the ones that maybe just like try to force like all these supplements down your throat, like from the very, very beginning. Is there like, do you have advice maybe for people listening as to like what to look for in maybe a functional medicine doctor, or really just like even like a family care physician, or just somebody that's looking for a doctor that maybe is going to be a little bit more, I don't know, holistic, if you will?
Right. I'd say the main thing, because it's hard definitely on your, just first couple visits to a physician to figure out if they're the right fit for you. But the main thing is, how much do they let you speak about your own concerns or your own issues? We were always taught the statistic that a physician will interrupt the patient within the first like 10 seconds of them talking, which I think is just crazy, since the physician is coming, or the patient is coming to you with a specific problem. You should probably be listening to them on what exactly is wrong with them. So if you're going to see a new doctor and you're not sure if they're the right one or not, see if they listen to you, if they dive deep into what your problem is, or if they automatically start jumping to conclusions and start saying that this is the true problem and you need to be buying these supplements or taking these prescriptions. Basically how much they listen to you, are willing to work with you with really, and educate you as well. They should be educating you along the process and not just kind of giving you a diagnosis and a treatment plan. The good ones are going to try to educate you, because if you're educated on the disease process, you're going to be able to go forward and stop that process from getting worse,
Yeah, that's good advice. Well, dude, I got one more question for you. I think that'll kind of add some value to the listeners here. What, like, in terms of your kind of nutrition education, like the people that you're studying, the people that you're following, like if you could give like, I don't know, your top 3 or top 5 people, for those that are listening, to kind of go out and, just like I tell people, the information, it's out there everywhere. Right. And obviously you don't have maybe the time that some of us do, or maybe you're not as interested in learning. But, I think that if we can point them out to some good references and some people that, they can just read their content and study it, and hopefully it'll kind of help them. Anybody come to mind for you?
So, I mean, Jason Phillips, I've said his name many times throughout this session. So he's definitely one to go watch. I mean, he's putting out tons of information. And he's a good one, because it's not only, he talks about, the kind of 3 pillars of performance, aesthetics, or health and longevity. So whatever your main focus is, he has a lot of information about that. So following him, or Iron 3 Nutrition, some other people that I've gotten into lately, which they have like PhDs within the field of nutritional science. One is Lane Norton, on Instagram. I think he's like Bio Lane, but he always puts out a lot of information. A lot of it focuses more on kind of like bodybuilding in the performance realm, but it has a lot of just overall aspects for pretty much general population or anybody in nutrition. So he's a really good source too. Alan Aragon has a research review that he puts out every month, which goes deep into different review articles that are put out. And he's also on Instagram and puts out some really good infographics. I always tend to share them or repost them, just because it gets down to actual science that's being done and the results that are seen from different people and from different studies and stuff like that. So those are probably 3 of my main go-tos, I'd say.
Yeah, I love that. Those all three of those guys are great. That actually just prompted one more question for me. Like what are the biggest mistakes that people are making in terms of interpreting research? Because like so many people out there that like maybe actually like didn't go through school and maybe like studied research like I don't know, like properly, or they actually got taught to do it the right way. Like, I feel like everybody thinks that they can just read it and pull information. So like, what are the, like, either how do you recommend interpreting it? Like what actually matters, or like, what are the biggest issues that you're seeing with people and interpreting research?
So I have a lot of friends that have gone through to get either master's degrees or are currently getting their PhD or in med school as well. So sometimes they'll send me like journal articles or studies, things like that. And it almost seems like when when the article or the study isn't as good as they think it is, it's because either they're only reading the title of it, and that's kind of like them, they just make their own conclusions from that, or they're just reading the abstract. And you can get a lot of things from the abstract. You know, it's supposed to have a good summary of everything in there. But unless you go deeper into the actual methods that are used and the data that was collected and the true results, it's they might misrepresent some of the things that they found. Um, there was a study that I was reading about just this past weekend that they made a very broad conclusion based on limited data that they had, and it a lot of times basically they make these conclusions that aren't necessarily in line with what the results show. So they kind of exaggerate a little bit or use the data to support whatever they're trying to prove or something like that. So if you go deeper into the methods, into the data, and make sure it all lines up properly, you can get the full viewpoint of what the study actually showed.
Yeah. I always joke with people. I'm like, don't be like the news station, or like, like don't be the news article. Like, like don't make some crazy statement or comment or whatever until you like know for sure that you understand it. So
Yes.
that's great advice, man. Well, dude, I could probably sit here and ask you questions all day long, but I want to respect your time. Where can everybody find you at? I know you have a podcast. I don't know, website, social media, all that stuff. Where can everybody find you at?
Yeah, so our business is Zeus Nutrition. Our website is zeus-nutrition.com, Zeus Nutrition on all the social medias. We have a podcast, like you said, the Zeus Nutrition Godcast. It's pretty much on any platform that you listen to podcasts. So hopefully we can get you on that soon.
Yeah, I would love to, man. That'd be
And
awesome.
and then my personal, let's see, I'm on Instagram, Griffin_Elbert, and Griffin Elbert on Facebook as well.
Nice. Well, awesome, man. Well, dude, I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.